Hello everybody! I'm trying out a new video setup which will hopefully be a little bit better than my usual setup. Okay, so getting started. Um, this is the embroidery hoop that I'll be using, and then I've got a selection of yarns here just to show you guys the difference between them. So there's 3 types of cotton here and 1 type of merino. So first of all, with the merino, if we take a nice long length here, if I'm holding it between my fingers like this without putting tension on it, when I pull it, you see that there's a bit of bounce to it. There's stretch. So merino is going to be an okay yarn to work with if you want to keep your warp in the hoop and not take it off. Once it's on the hoop, there's going to be tension on it which is going to stretch it. So if you want to cut it off afterwards and reuse the hoop again, then this tension that is happening, this stretch that is happening, is going to pull in on your work and then over time make everything bunch up. So just keep that in mind if you are going to be using merino. So putting that to the side. The other option that we have here is some mohair cotton. Let me just grab the end here. So now with cotton, as I'm holding it now here, not stretched, then when I pull it, you see there is a very, very small amount of stretch, not a lot. So this is making it a great option if you do want to cut it off. And then here we have some baker's twine, which again, if I'm holding a length here now and I'm pulling on it, you see there is a little bit of stretch but not a large amount. And then I've got some Katia Panama in a state over here. Let me just see here. What's going on? Getting all tangled up here. Let me just pull this label out. There we go. So if we now take a length of this, we're holding it without tension, and then I pull on it, you see there is a little bit of stretch, but again, not too much. Now, the thing to consider with your choice of your base color yarn, your warp yarn, is that depending on the techniques that you use, there might be sections of your warp that is showing through and sections that is hidden. So you don't want to choose a yarn that's going to be a contrast against the rest of the yarns that you're going to be using. So if, for example, we use this yellow brown and white twine, if we're going to be working with blues and pinks, this is going to show up quite a lot against that, which will make it a little bit hard to have a cohesive piece. So have a look at the other fibers that you want to weave with and choose a color that you think is going to fit with that color palette. So I am going to be using this Katia. So I just want to tidy my ball here a little bit. So we are ready to warp our yarn now. So you're going to take just the inside part of your embroidery hoop, and then what I've done is I've rolled off a little bit of yarn from my big ball just to make it, the passing around of it, a little bit easier. So then you tie your yarn on with what is called a square knot. So you pass your yarn under your hoop and then you cross it around. So you see how the end part is going underneath the longer part. You pass it through, you tighten up that knot, and then you cross it again, but this time with the shorter part crossing over the longer part. Cross it through and tie it tight. Okay, so now you're ready to start winding on your yarn. So you cross it to the other side of the hoop and you move it over, under the outside. Then you cross it to the other side, making sure that it has that cross happening at the top. So you can do these crosses at either a small amount or at a larger amount. The smaller the cross is that you're doing, the more yarn you're going to end up at the end of the day, obviously. But the other consideration is that if you have wider crosses like this, when you get to the end parts, weaving through and under is going to have quite a lot of space. So if you're going to be using thicker yarns on the outside than what you use on the inside, that is a good strategy. Otherwise, it's better to keep your crosses fairly close to each other. You don't have to make them this close, because then your inside spokes is going to be very tight as well. And then cross it over, under, taking your ball inside the hoop, over to the other side, and again you see there's the cross. So over, under, inside the hoop, across to the other side. Another important thing to remember is that as you're doing this, to keep tension on your yarn, you don't want these inside yarns to be flabby and all over the place. So then we go over, under, to the other side, and you keep doing that right around, trying to keep the distance of your spokes fairly equal to each other. Now that we are on our last spoke, you can see that they aren't perfect, the slices in between, but they are pretty good. So what I'm going to be doing now is pinching that last spoke with my thumb, and then with this last little bit of yarn, pass it under, but instead of going up and through again, pass it through every one of these double threads around, right around, until you get back to this last spoke again. Here we are at that center spoke. So now, with that yarn going into everything, that little one, pass your remainder yarn underneath it, so that when you pull on it to pull it to the center, it's actually going to be pulling it towards the center. You see there's the yarn coming off my last spoke, going underneath it, so when I pull, you see it wants to travel to the center. And then you just pull that whole business nice and tight in the middle. So now once it's there in the middle, you can pass it all around again before tying off. So I'm going to quickly do that off camera so that my arms don't break off. So now the one where you tied on might be a little bit confusing because it wants to go under. I would recommend to just pass it underneath that single yarn and then carry on passing it through again all the others. Alrighty, so we're back. As you can see, there's my second pass through. So what I like to do is, before I pull this tight, grip it anywhere you want, just to pull up a loop, and then pull your yarn through that little bit of loop, so that when you pull it tight, it crosses over the center like that. It doesn't have to be an exact opposite cross or anything like that, but then what happens is that it behaves sort of like a magic